When the world crumbles around you, don't run from the chaos, step into it, because buried in the rubble is the map to your purpose. Asterisk, ladies and gentlemen. There comes a time in every life when the winds roar too loud, when the skies turn dark, and the world feels like it's spinning out of control. We've all been there, standing in the middle of chaos, confused, overwhelmed, and on the edge of surrender. The storms seem never-ending, and clarity feels like a distant dream. Let me remind you of something sacred. From chaos comes clarity. The pain you're feeling, the questions swirling in your head, the heartbreak, the uncertainty, they are not the end. They're the beginning of your transformation. Chaos has a strange way of waking us up. It strips away illusions, breaks down the walls we built out of fear, and forces us to confront truths we've long avoided. In the middle of the noise, we find silence. In the heart of the confusion, we discover who we really are. That moment when everything falls apart is not your breaking point. It is your turning point. Because sometimes life has to shake you to shape you. It must push you into discomfort so you can grow into your strength. I know it's not easy. I know the chaos hurts. But inside that mess, something beautiful is waiting. A clearer vision, a renewed purpose, a stronger version of you. Find your truth in the calm. You find it in the storm. You don't discover your power in the light. You earn it in the darkness. Every tear you cried, every battle you fought, every sleepless night, it's all been preparing you for this moment. You are not lost. You are becoming, so hold on. Just keep walking. Trust the process. The fog will lift. The noise will fade. And what you'll see on the other side will make every step worth it. You'll look back and realize that the chaos didn't destroy you, it revealed you. Cleared the path you were always meant to walk. Asterisk, ladies and gentlemen, there is a strange and haunting silence that precedes the storm. The kind of silence that does not bring peace, but an eerie awareness that something is about to shift. It's the silence in your chest when your world stops making sense. It's the quiet before life decides to rewrite itself. It doesn't ask for permission. It doesn't knock politely on your door. It comes uninvited, dragging chaos in its arms, tearing down everything you thought was permanent. And in that moment, the questions explode. Why now? Why me? What did I do wrong? When yet the truth is more profound than the pain. The truth is that chaos does not enter to destroy you, it enters to awaken you. We live in a world obsessed with control, predictability, perfection. We measure success by how stable everything looks from the outside. But life is not about keeping everything neat and tidy. Life is about transformation. And transformation doesn't happen in comfort. It happens in crisis. You don't find out who you are when everything is working. You find out who you are when everything is falling apart. That is when the mask drops. That is when the stories you've been telling yourself are stripped away. That is when the noise outside becomes so unbearable that you're finally forced to listen to the voice within. Chaos comes. When your soul is ready for clarity, but your mind is still holding on to confusion. It's like trying to walk a path that no longer exists, forcing yourself to fit into roles that were never truly yours. Chasing dreams that were planted by fear, not love. The breakdown you're experiencing is not punishment, it is alignment. It is the violent undoing of what never truly belonged to you in the first place. It is the universe's way of clearing the room so that what is meant for you can enter. But I know it doesn't feel like that when you're in it. It feels like drowning in your own thoughts. It feels like waking up every morning with no idea who you are anymore. It feels like loss, like failure, like betrayal. And yet in this storm, something is being born. Look closely, not with your eyes, but with your truth. You are not being broken. You are being rebuilt. You are not being abandoned. You are being redirected. And the pain, it's just the price of shedding the layers that kept you small. You see? Ouch! Clarity is not a light switch, it's a slow sunrise. It doesn't come all at once. It arrives moment by moment, realization by realization. You wake up one day and you breathe differently. You look at things with eyes that have seen the dark and survived it. You stop craving approval. You stop chasing what doesn't love you back. You begin to move from a place of stillness, not noise. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is Claritina, knowing all the answers. But finally knowing the right questions, you begin to understand that not all chaos is cruel. Some of it is sacred. Some of it is your soul demanding to be heard. Some of it is life shaking you so that you'll stop sleeping through your existence. And in that shaking, the illusions fall away. The lies fall away. Tated. The toxic patterns, the fears dressed as logic, they all fall away. What remains is raw, real, and terrifying. But it is also the birthplace of your power. I want you to understand this deeply. Your chaos is not evidence of your failure. It is evidence that you are evolving. You are shedding skin. You're growing into someone who can no longer be caged by mediocrity. You're becoming someone who cannot live by default. And yes, it hurts. Yes, it is messy. Yes, you will want to give up 100 times. But each time you choose to stay, each time you choose to face it, to a reclaiming a part of yourself you forgot was there. Chaos is where you remember who you are, not who they told you to be, not who you pretended to be, but who you were before the world got to you. Before you were told to sit down, to shrink, to doubt, you that still dreamed wildly, you that didn't yet carry the burden of expectations. That version of you is not lost, is buried under years of noise, and chaos is the shovel that will dig you out. So let the chaos come. Let it rage and twist and burn. Let it take what needs to be taken. Let it undo what was never meant to stay. Because when the dust settles, you will rise not as who you were, but as who you were always meant to become. A version of you that is clearer, braver, more whole. A version that no longer needs to control everything to feel safe. A version that trusts the unfolding. A version that knows from chaos comes clarity, not because the storm ends, but because you learned how to stand in it. And you will look back at this chapter not with bitterness, but with reverence. You will realize it was not the worst thing that ever happened to you. It was the moment everything began to make sense. And that is the power of chaos. It doesn't ruin you, it reveals you. It doesn't destroy your path, it shows you a new one. One that was waiting all along, ladies and gentlemen. There's something unsettling about chaos, not just in how it disrupts, but in how it unmasks. We often move through life with quiet desperation, dressed in armor made of routine, validation, and the illusion of control. But then comes a moment, unexpected, uninvited, and unforgettable, when life no longer allows you to play pretend. Chaos doesn't ask you if you're ready. It doesn't wait for a convenient time. It simply arrives, and in its arrival, it shakes the foundation of everything you believed was real. But if you dare to look beyond the devastation, you'll see it for what it truly is. The most honest mirror life can offer you. When you're stripped of your titles, your roles, your safety net, when you lose the job, the relationship, the plan, you come face to face with something rare and raw, your essence. Who are you when no one is watching? Who are you when there's nothing left to prove? Who are you when you are not being everything to everyone? These questions don't come gently. They scream through the silence left behind by the chaos. In answering them, you uncover the roots of your true identity. The mistake most people make is thinking they have to rebuild exactly what was lost. They try to piece back together the version of life that existed before the storm. But that version was never built to last. It crumbled because it lacked alignment. It collapsed because it was constructed from obligation, fear, and external approval. Chaos doesn't destroy truth. It destroys illusion. It tears down the life you settled for, so you can finally create the one you were born for. And that creation begins not with certainty, but with courage. You see, clarity isn't a destination. It's not something you reach after ticking boxes, or following a step-by-step formula. It's not a neatly packaged answer. It's a revelation that arrives in layers, often in the quiet moments after everything has been taken from you. It arrives in the solitude of reflection, in the bravery of stillness, in the soft whispers of your intuition when you finally have no choice but to listen. You don't find clarity by avoiding the storm. You find it by walking through it with open eyes and an open heart. The people who rise from chaos with clarity are not the ones who fought the storm the hardest. They are the ones who surrendered to the lesson. They are the ones who stopped asking, "Why me?" and started asking, "What is this trying to teach me?" They are the ones who chose not to run, but to root, to stay present with their pain, to question their own stories, to challenge the narratives that were passed down to them by generations. Of people too afraid to question their own? It takes strength to sit in the middle of your own unraveling, to watch your identity fall apart, and still believe that you are not broken, but reborn. It takes courage to stand in the ruins of your plans and say, I will build something better. It takes wisdom to realize that clarity does not mean having every answer. It means finally asking the right questions. Who am I? What do I truly want? What am I no longer willing to tolerate? What kind of life do I deserve to live? Not easy questions. They demand you confront parts of yourself you've long buried, your insecurities, your shadows, your regrets. They demand radical honesty. But in that honesty, you'll find the blueprint to your most authentic life. That blueprint cannot be found in peace alone. It must be discovered in pieces, in the fragments of your former self, in the ashes of what you thought you needed, in the echoes of what no longer fits. There's a unique power in standing at rock bottom, because when you have nothing left, you also have nothing to lose. You're free to start over, not from scratch, but from experience. And experience is the most valuable clarity there is. It teaches you what you truly value, what you're capable of surviving, and what you must now become to honor your truth. Chaos gives you that experience. It refines your focus, purifies your vision. It demands your growth. Too often we glorify the calm and demonize the storm, but the calm teaches you how to rest. The storm teaches you how to rise. The calm reminds you of what you have. The storm reveals what you're made of. Clarity comes when you stop fearing the storm and start learning from it, when you stop waiting for life to be easy and start becoming someone who is powerful, regardless of how hard life gets, and you will get there. Not all at once, but step by step. Tear by tear, breath by breath. You will begin to recognize the patterns that no longer serve you. You will find yourself making decisions not out of desperation, but out of purpose. You will stop chasing what looks good and start choosing what feels right. And in doing so, you'll find peace, not the kind that comes from everything being perfect, but the kind that comes from finally being real. This is the clarity that chaos brings. It is not soft, it is not always beautiful, but it is yours. And once you've seen it, once you've felt it, once you've lived it, nothing can ever take it away. You'll know who you are. You'll know what matters. You'll carry that. Knowing with you for the rest of your life, you'll no longer be swayed by noise, pulled by pressure, or distracted by doubt. Because you will have met yourself in the fire, and you will know you are forged, not fragile. You are deliberate, not desperate. You are clear, not confused. And so when the next wave of chaos comes and you will not fear it. You will welcome it, because you will understand that chaos is not a threat. It is a threshold. It is the crossing point between the life you've outgrown and the life that's waiting for you to claim it. It is not your ending. It is your beginning. Asterisk, ladies and gentlemen, there's a moment when the noise becomes unbearable, the external kind, but the deafening roar of internal. Doubt, the kind that keeps you awake at night and follows you into every silent room. The moment when everything familiar starts slipping through your fingers and you no longer recognize the reflection in the mirror. You begin to wonder if you've lost yourself, if the pieces will ever fit again, if there's even a path forward. But let me say this to you with the deepest sincerity. In that confusion, in that heavy silence, in that devastating unraveling, there is something extraordinary being born. Chaos is not confusion. Chaos is realignment. It's not that you don't know who you are, it's that you're shedding. It's who you are not. This is the pivotal shift, the sacred turning point, where pain transforms into perspective. You begin to question not only your circumstances, but your identity, your values, your direction. The chaos that disrupts your life externally is a mirror reflecting the chaos that was already growing inside. A quiet war between what you've outgrown and what you've refused to release. You're not breaking down because you're weak. You're You're breaking open because something inside you is too powerful to be silenced any longer. It is in these moments when the path disappears, when the rules no longer apply, when the people you trusted walk away, that your truth starts to whisper louder than your fear. You realize you've spent years building a life around expectations that were never truly yours. You followed the map they gave you, and it led you to a life that looked good on the outside, but felt empty inside. Chaos tears that map apart. While it may feel like you're lost, you're finally free to find your own way. Clarity doesn't arrive in grand declarations, doesn't appear with confetti or certainty. It shows up in the soft, persistent voice inside you that says, "This isn't right," or "There's more for me," or simply, "I can't keep living like this." That voice, so often ignored, begins to rise above the noise when chaos strips everything else away. And once you hear it, truly hear it, you can't go back to pretending. You begin to see that everything you feared losing was never really yours to keep. Relationships, jobs, identities, roles, they all served a purpose, but they were never your essence. 8. When they fall away, it hurts not because you're losing yourself, but because you're shedding the layers that once protected your wounds. And as those layers fall, you're left raw, exposed and vulnerable, but also real, open and ready. Ready to rebuild, not from survival, but from authenticity. Chaos is the demolition crew that arrives unannounced. It doesn't ask which walls you'd like to keep. It tears everything down because it knows the foundation was cracked. It knows that no matter how beautiful the structure looked, it was never going to withstand the weight of your soul's calling. And so it destroys, not out of cruelty, but out of mercy. Because it's better to lose what's false than to live a lifetime pretending it's real. You won't always understand the timing. You won't always welcome the disruption. But if you allow yourself to sit in the ashes, not with bitterness, but with curiosity, you'll begin to see patterns that were invisible before. You'll notice the ways you've betrayed yourself just to keep the peace. The ways you've dimmed your light to avoid making others uncomfortable. The ways you've held on to pain because it was familiar. And in that awareness, something awakens. Something that refuses to be silenced again. This is the birth of clarity, not a gift handed to you, but a fire you walk through willingly. You face your fears, not because they disappear, but because you're tired of letting them dictate your life. You confront your past, not to relive it, but to release it. You stop asking for permission. You stop apologizing for existing. You start living in a way that honors your deepest truths, not your loudest doubts. And it doesn't happen overnight. It's not a moment, it's a series of small, brave choices. Choosing to say no when you used to say yes just to be liked. Choosing to rest when your worth was always tied to productivity. Choosing to speak up when silence once felt safer. These choices, though small, become the building blocks of a life that is truly yours. It's in these choices that you reclaim your power. Not the power to control life, but the power to respond to it with truth. It's the power to live aligned with your values. The power to walk away from what depletes you. The power to stay when things get uncomfortable but meaningful. And with every step, the fog begins to lift. The chaos doesn't disappear, but it begins to make sense. You start to see the meaning behind the mess. It's a purpose behind the pain. The light within the loss. You realize that the clarity you were searching for was never about knowing everything. It was about knowing yourself. It was about stripping away everything that distorted your vision so you could finally see who you've always been, and who you are is not weak, not broken, not behind. You are a masterpiece in progress, a warrior of truth, a soul who refused to settle, a being whose clarity was carved not in comfort but in courage. You won't go back to who you were. You can't, because you're no longer willing to live half a life. You're no longer interested in being liked if it costs you your integrity. You're no longer chasing dreams that were planted in soil that doesn't nourish you. Building something new. From your scars, from your silence, from your truth. It's more beautiful than anything you've lost. So when you find yourself in the middle of another storm, don't panic, pause, listen, breathe. The chaos isn't your enemy. It's your compass. It's guiding you home to yourself. And that home is not made of perfection, it's made of truth. It's made of values, purpose, and peace. The kind of peace that comes not from avoiding the storm, but from walking through it and realizing it couldn't take you, because you, dear soul, are unshakable not. Because life never shakes you, but because you've learned how to stay standing when it does. Ladies and gentlemen, there is a sacred moment, not when everything is fixed, but when you finally decide not to run. Not from the chaos, not from yourself, not from the truth. You sit down in the rubble, surrounded by the brokenness, the confusion, the echoes of a life that doesn't make sense anymore, and you say, I will not escape this time. I will feel everything. I will face what I have buried. I will stand in the fire and see what is left when it's done burning. That right there is where true clarity begins, not with answers. With the decision to stop running, running feels easier. It's fast. It's distracting. It gives the illusion of progress. You run into distractions, into work, into people, into plans, into your phone, into anything that numbs the ache. But the ache remains. It always does, because running doesn't lead you to freedom, it leads you in circles. In life, in its mysterious mercy, will keep sending storms until you stop. Till you look around and realize that maybe the chaos is not something to outrun. Maybe it's the exact thing you've needed all along. Maybe the chaos is not the problem. Maybe it's the portal. You see, chaos doesn't break you. It breaks the version of you that wasn't real. The version that was built for survival, not purpose. The one that learned to smile through pain, to achieve instead of feel, to fake peace instead of fight for truth. That version of you was a beautiful attempt. It kept you safe. It brought you this far, but it cannot carry you forward. And that's why everything feels like it's collapsing, because the soul refuses to live in a body that betrays itself anymore. Your breakdown is not the end of you. It's the liberation of you. When the noise gets so loud that it drowns out your pretending, that's when the transformation begins. You start to feel things you've numbed for years. Sadness that was buried. Anger that was disguised as calm. Dreams that were traded for approval. Regrets that were painted as lessons too quickly. You feel all of it not to drown in it, but to finally understand it. To finally meet yourself underneath it. This is not weakness. This is sacred reckoning. Do not mistake discomfort for disaster. Do not confuse your breaking open with breaking down. You are not unraveling into emptiness. You're unraveling into wholeness. Because the truth is, you were never meant to live numb. You were meant to feel deeply, to see clearly, to live loudly. But that kind of aliveness requires truth. And truth is born in chaos, not in the polished, perfect places, but in the honest, messy, raw spaces where you stop hiding and start healing. This is the threshold between who you've been and who you're becoming. It's disorienting. You don't know what to hold on to because everything familiar feels foreign. The things that once brought comfort no longer satisfy. The people you once clung to no longer understand you. The identity you wore with pride now feels suffocating. This is not failure. This is transition. That's it. And in transition, things die so that better things can live. It's in transition, you are being rewired. You are being reminded of your essence. And that essence is not weak. That essence is not lost. That essence is not behind. That essence is timeless, eternal, powerful, waiting for you to stop abandoning it. Waiting for you to stop negotiating your truth for someone else's comfort. Waiting for you to stop apologizing for needing rest, space, solitude, peace. Your essence doesn't need fixing. It needs uncovering. And chaos is the hands that pull the layers off. When you finally allow yourself to sit with the mess knot, fix it, not explain it, not escape it, but truly sit with it, something miraculous happens. You start hearing the voice you've ignored for years, the voice that speaks without judgment, the voice that whispers in the quietest tones but carries the loudest wisdom, the voice that says, you were never meant to fit in, you were meant to break molds, you were never too much, you were too real for the world's smallness, you were never lost, you were just layered. Then Those layers: fear, shame, pressure. Performance, they begin to fall. One by one. With every tear, with every truth, with every brave breath. And beneath them is a clarity so sharp it scares you. Because it demands change, demands honesty, demands that you stop settling. That you stop explaining your worth. That you stop building homes and places that only offer you temporary shelter. This clarity is not a suggestion, it's a calling. And once you feel it, you can't unfeel it. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. You will start to make changes, not because life is forcing you, but because your soul is now louder than your fear. You'll walk away from people you love, not in hate, but in alignment. You'll quit jobs that paid you well, but starved your spirit. You'll speak truths that make your voice tremble, but your heart exhale. You'll rest when everything says grind. You'll stay when everything says run. You'll choose you. That is the revolution that chaos begins. The revolution where you take your power back, where you stop asking for clarity to come in the form of comfort, and instead embrace it in the form of courage. Because clarity rarely feels safe at first. It feels risky, lonely, strange, but it also feels real. It feels like finally breathing after holding it in for too long. It feels like remembering something you forgot you knew. It feels like home, not a place, but a posture of truth. This is the gift that comes from chaos, not answers, but awareness. Not perfection, but presence. Not certainty, but conviction. And those things once owned change everything. You start living from the inside out. You start moving in rhythm with your soul. You stop needing validation because you've already been verified by your own truth. You stop chasing peace because you realize it's something you create, not find. And suddenly, the storm that once terrified you becomes sacred. The fire that once consumed you becomes cleansing. The chaos that once confused you becomes your compass. You are not the same. You are wiser, softer, stronger. Not because you avoided the storm, but because you let it shape you without destroying. You let it teach you without stealing your tenderness. You let it tear down everything false so you could build something real. So sit with your chaos. Bless it. Welcome it. Let it do its holy work. And always trust that on the other side of it is not just clarity, but a version of you that was always waiting to be set free. Asterisk, ladies and gentlemen, there comes a moment in the chaos when you stop asking when it will end and you begin to ask what it came to reveal. That moment is a quiet revolution. It is the pause between despair and awakening. It is the instant when you shift from fighting the storm to listening to it. That subtle but seismic shift is where clarity begins to break through like sunlight, through shattered glass. You stop demanding the storm to leave and start receiving its lesson. You're no longer surviving, you're transforming. Transformation isn't glamorous. It's brutal. It strips you down, leaves you without a script, without applause, without certainty. But it also gives you something far more valuable than comfort. It gives you truth. Truth, ladies and gentlemen, is what most people spend their entire lives avoiding. Not because they are bad or weak, but because truth is a disruptor. It challenges everything you've believed, inherited, or accepted out of fear. And that's exactly why chaos is sacred. It disrupts the lies you've outgrown and creates the space for a truth that fits who you're becoming. There is a strange gift inside: disorientation. When you no longer know who you are finally free to choose. When the roles dissolve, the masks fall, and the expectations fade, you are left with something so rare: freedom. It's not the kind that lets you do whatever you want, but the kind that demands you do what is real. It's the kind that no longer allows you to betray yourself just to be understood. It's the kind that says you don't need to be liked if you're being honest. And that kind of freedom doesn't come easy. It costs you your delusions. It costs you your autopilot. It costs you your pretending. But what it gives you? Clarity. And clarity is priceless. We are taught from childhood to pursue stability, chase certainty like it's oxygen. But certainty often becomes a prison, and it lulls you into complacency. It makes you afraid to question, afraid to leap, afraid to evolve. Chaos breaks those chains. It teaches you that the ground will shake, and you will still stand. That you can lose everything you thought you needed and still rise with nothing but breath and truth in your chest. That clarity isn't about knowing how things will turn out. It's about knowing you'll be okay, no matter how they do. When everything falls apart, your instincts will scream for control. You'll try to fix, to solve, to rebuild as fast as you can. But control is the illusion you must surrender to find clarity. You don't need control, you need connection. Connection to your breath, to your heart, to the present moment. Chaos disconnects you from what's shallow so you can reconnect with what's deep. You realize that you don't need all the answers. You just need the courage to ask better questions. You don't need certainty, you need conviction. Conviction is knowing who you are, even when everything else is unclear. It's waking up in the dark and still choosing to walk forward. It's trusting that your intuition wasn't lying. It's feeling terrified and moving anyway. And the only way to build conviction is through the fire. There is no shortcut. You have to lose the things that defined you before. You have to feel naked in your own life. You have to stand in the discomfort of not knowing and say, I trust myself anyway.